Yes. Thanks for joining us this afternoon, or at least it's afternoon here on the East Coast. My name is Bobby Lauer. I'm the president of Campus Compact. Excited to have you join us today for one of our Campus Compact resource spotlight sessions. Today, we are focusing on strengthening college access pathways, and I am thrilled to be joined today by Dr. Felicia Russell, who is going to get started in just a second with sharing lots of great information about the College Corner program, which is being sponsored and supported and driven by an incredible organization. If you do not know them, the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration. Felicia Russell is the Vice President for Campus Programs and Portal Initiatives. And today we're going to learn all about College Corner and how it is a resource for civic and community engagement professionals. And I do want to share ahead of time, because I know I will get the question, that Felicia has already given me a link to her slides, and I will be sharing those as well as when we share the recording. So I'll throw those into chat when we finish today. Just know that those are coming your way. And so I think Felicia asked me today, or the other day, said, how long should we open for Q&A? So I think we hope to kind of have 20, 25 minutes for Felicia to walk through the initiative, kind of share some resources, and then we'll open it up for questions. So feel free. We're obviously a small enough group to go ahead and throw those into chat or any comments that you think of along the line. And to get us started also, it's always nice when folks kind of introduce themselves to the group in chat. So go ahead and throw in a chat who you are and what your institution is. And with that, I will turn it over to Felicia.
All right. Well, thank you, Bobby. It's great to be here. And thanks for agreeing to also share the slides. It's great to be here with everyone. And so hope you all will put your names and your organization or institution that you represent in the chat so we can know who's in the chat. And again, I'm Felicia Russell. I am the Vice President for Campus Programs and Portal Initiatives at the President's Alliance on Higher Education and Immigration. And so, what that means is I oversee our undocumented student initiative and our refugee and displaced student initiative teams. So, I oversee that work at the Alliance. So, I'm really glad that you all are here today. Bobby, are the slides up yet? I'm not able to see them. Okay.
There
Okay,
you go.
great. All right, yes. So let's go to slide two. So for those of you who don't know, the President's Alliance is a group of over 570 college presidents and chancellors who've come together around the immigration issues impacting our students, campuses, and communities. So the Alliance works to support immigrant, undocumented, international, and refugee students, and we advance forward-looking immigration policies at the federal level and equip partners to enact positive change at the state and at the collegiate levels. So we do those four things through educating, we navigate, and we equip institutions. So everything we do is grounded in the belief that immigrant, undocumented, refugee, and international students deserve access to higher education, and that the institutions that serve them also deserve real support in doing that work well. And um, with the President's Alliance is an initiative, and it's the Higher Ed Immigration Portal, which I oversee. And so, for those of you who don't know, the Higher Ed Immigration Portal is a collective digital resource hub, and it enables greater access to multiple audiences, including higher ed leaders, federal and state policymakers, students, and the general public, to easily access evidence-based information such as research, data, policy analysis, best practices, personal narratives, and other materials related to higher education and immigration. It's free and it's available to everyone in this room right now. And so if I were you, I would just go to Higher Ed Immigration Portal and find that and bookmark it. And the reason I say that is, part of why I'm going to be talking about College Corner, which is an initiative that, support undocumented students, is because I myself grew up undocumented. So I was undocumented for a while. And then during my collegiate career, I applied for Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which is known as DACA. So I'm sure many of you know about DACA. And so I had DACA, throughout my undergraduate career, my master's, my doctorate, and then eventually, adjusted my status. But even after that, all of those personal experiences and my own professional experiences, I served as a director of undergraduate admission at a private liberal arts school. I served in college and career access for 6 years at a high school in Philadelphia. So, with my professional experience and my lived experience, if I had access to the portal when I was doing the work that I was doing on the ground with students, I would have been a better counselor, practitioner, admission counselor. So bookmark the portal. It is great and it has a lot of timely information. So whatever you think you want to know, if you want to know if undocumented students can access in-state tuition in your state or, whatever it is, those questions can be answered on the portal. All right, so that brings me to College Corner. So, College Corner is a free national initiative that we built specifically for K-12 college counselors and access professionals working with undocumented students and their families. It launched in 2025, and since then, it's reached over 450 practitioners nationwide. So, the four things it offer monthly policy updates. So, if you want to know what's going on in particular states, as it relates to undocumented students, we offer those timely updates, policy updates, practical tools and resources to support students and families, a peer community and network, and quarterly learning sessions. So that's what College Corner offers. So who we serve? So four groups: K-12 college counselors, school-based staff working directly with undocumented and mixed status students. We also, the other group would be college access professionals at nonprofits and community-based organizations. And then also higher ed practitioners and partners, so staff at colleges and universities building K-12 pipelines, and community educators more broadly. So if you're in the session today, College Corner was likely built with you in mind. So, what I'm hoping you walk away with today. By the end of the session, I hope you'll have a deeper understanding of the current policy context K-12 practitioners, excuse me, are navigating right now. You'll have strategies for strengthening partnerships between higher education and K-12 programs. You'll understand the College Corner model and you'll have some practical tools in your hands before you walk out of this meeting today. So let's get into a little bit of that. So the policy context, right? So let me start with the landscape. So because students are at the center of this work, we are navigating a policy environment right now that changes faster than any one practitioner can reasonably track on their own. So DACA, in-state tuition equity, financial aid eligibility, campus enforcement protocols, all of these have shifted significantly since 2025. And in many cases, the counselor or whoever's supporting these students is absorbing that uncertainty right alongside them. So let me give you some numbers for that. So 84% of higher education enrollment growth between 2000 and 2023 was driven by first and second generation immigrants. That's the majority of enrollment growth in American education over more than 2 decades, driven by immigrant families. So this population, they're not on the margins of American higher education, they're very central to it. And some other pieces of data to keep in mind, about 75,000 undocumented students graduate high school each year, right? One in three of those students in higher education are immigrant origin. There are about 4 million plus for second generation students enrolled in higher education. And currently in higher education, about 510,000 of the students identify as undocumented. All right. So that's just some of the numbers. And then if you think about it by race and ethnicity, the data shows that higher education, broken down by race and ethnicity and immigrant generation in 2023 is highly diverse, right? So it tells us that immigrant origin students are distributed all across racial and ethnic groups, and it's not just Latinx students. So next slide, please. So you have Latinx students, you have, next slide, Asian American and Pacific Islander students, Black students, and many are immigrant origin. And many are navigating barriers that compound everything else they're already managing. That's very important to note because a lot of folks working with undocumented students think that they're only Latinx students, but it's very diverse, right? Again, I told you I grew up undocumented, and one of my, craziest experience I had in high school was, um, I joined an undocumented student club on my high school campus, and I was the only Black person in the group. And one of the students said to the counselor, "Why is she here?" Right? And he said, "Oh, she's from Jamaica. That's why she's here." And at the time, right, I'm 17, 16 years old, that made me feel like other. Like, here's this group I'm supposed to be a part of, but yet the students are like, "Why is she here?" As I grew older, I understood that the question itself was not malicious in its intention. She was just like, "This is our safe space. We see Felicia around campus, and they saw me as African American, and so they didn't see me as a Black immigrant, right? And as you all know, to be African American is to be Black, but to be Black doesn't mean you're African American, right? So the student was just like, "Why is she here?" And that's been my experience, which is why I wanted to study the experiences of Black undocumented students. What were their experiences? So I think it's really important here to note that the undocumented student population is very diverse, and I just want us to keep that in mind. So, next slide. So, who is supposed to guide these students, right? So, college counselors, access professionals, people like you all in this room, and most of us are doing our best, but we're doing it with limited support and limited information. So, practitioners are up against a lot of different factors right now. So, first is the policy context. It's very complex right now, right? So, the rules governing undocumented students' access to financial aid, in-state tuition, and college pathways vary enormously by state and changes frequently, especially over the last year and a half. So what's true in California is not true in Pennsylvania. What's true last year may not be true right now. And so the Hired Immigration Portal that I mentioned earlier is a tool to have in your back pocket, because if you're in a specific state and you want to learn what does my state do or not do for undocumented students, you'll be able to find that on the portal. The second piece that practitioners are navigating right now is capacity, right? So many school counselors have 300 or more students, and they just don't have enough time to be a specialist in immigration policy, which is fine. Again, the portal will help you to do that, right? So one of my great blessings of my high school career is that when I decided to talk about my status to my counselor, he was very well versed on the immigration landscape. And so he was able to guide me to college versus some of my counterparts who I met during my research. Instead of having a counselor who knew that they could go to college, they told them they couldn't go to college, right? So when I was interviewing folks, there were people who graduated high school and just had no idea they could go to college because the educators who were supposed to know more than them didn't, and told them otherwise, that they couldn't go to college. So, but I just want folks in this room to know you don't have to know everything about immigration, but it's important to have the tools ready. So if you have a question, know where to find it, know who to go to, and again, the portal will help you do that. The third piece is isolation, right? So please don't do this work by yourself. So many practitioners who are supporting undocumented students right now are doing it alone. They're doing it without a peer network and without colleagues who can answer difficult questions when they come up. Again, that's why College Corner exists. That's what we do there. It's a network of over 450 folks who are working right now on the ground with undocumented students, whether in higher ed or at the K-12 level. And then obviously there's the misinformation risk, right? So when we don't have access to vetted information, current information, we give wrong guidance. And it's not because we don't care, but it's because the information landscape is very fragmented. College Corner was built to address all four of these things directly. So, next slide. So, one of the four things College Corner provides, I mentioned earlier, is quarterly learning sessions. So, that's free practitioner based, uh, designed around moments in the academic year where counselors need the most guidance, right? So, the next session that's coming up is on June 30th, and I would encourage everyone in this room to register. And the timing could not be more important. The topic is preventing summer melt and preparing for application season. So that's preventing summer melt for low income and undocumented students, and also preparing those same group of students for the upcoming application season. And as you all know, summer melt is, probably one of the most significant and under addressed challenges in college access work. It's the period between graduation and the start of fall semester when students who are accepted who had a plan, they lose that momentum, right? They miss financial aid deadlines, they get discouraged, and family circumstances pull them in all different directions. And sometimes they just don't make it to a college campus. And for undocumented students, every one of those risks is amplified. And so that session will give counselors practical strategies for keeping recent high school graduates on track and making sure that they make it to college. Session three is September 29th. And again, that one is focused on the application season. And then session four will be December 8th. And that's just a year-end policy review of all the different policies that have changed within 2027 and a look ahead to 2027. All the four sessions are free and they're all on Zoom. So again, please register. So in terms of some tools that I want to give today, and I want you to have access to some of these tools. And again, all of these tools that I'm going to provide, they're on the Higher Ed Immigration portal. The first one is our Mixed Status Families Guide. So if you work with students whose parents or siblings have different immigration statuses, this is a very important tool. This guide gives you a framework for navigating college planning conversations in a way that is informed and student-centered. It covers disclosure, what to do if a student shares with you they're undocumented or they have TPS or whatever it is, right? It covers financial aid opportunities, scholarships, where students can find this, and how family circumstances affect the college process. So the link is on the slide. So when you get the slide, just click it and you'll be taken to the Higher Ed Immigration portal directly to that resource. The second resource today that I think you should take a look at is the Rights and Protections Hub that's on the portal. So when a student asks what their rights are, or when there's enforcement activity on a college campus, this is where you want to go. You want to go to this guide. It covers what institutions can do and what students are entitled to and how to respond. The third one is our mental health guide that was created by professionals experts in the mental health field, and then also academics in the mental health field. And so this guide is as much for the students as it is for the practitioners who are working with them. So the anxiety and the stress that undocumented and mixed status families are carrying right now, it's significant. This guide provides a framework and referral language to use as you work with those students. So all three of these resources are free. They're all in the portal. And so you can go on the portal, download them now, or again, when you get the slides later, feel free to click and it'll take you directly to those. So beyond those three specific tools, the portal also offers a broad suite of resources for you all. So weekly updates about what's going on, rapid response briefings when policy shifts, and effective practice webinars. Two recent resources that's also worth noting is the Protecting Tuition Equity Playbook. And so if you're in a state right now where there's probably going to be DOJ requests to, not have undocumented students access in-state tuition, this tool is for you. And then there's the Campus Preparedness Toolkit on immigration enforcement. And again, that's about what to do when ICE comes to campus. And it also has examples of what other colleges and universities have done when those situations did arise on their campus. So both are relevant right now. They're on the College Corner Hub as well. We also have on the College Corner Hub and the portal dedicated resource hubs organized by specific topic. So if you want to know more about FAFSA for mixed status families, we have that on the portal. And just, scan that barcode there. And again, it'll take you there. So it's just a lot of information on the portal. The other piece I want to talk about is how institutions right now are, navigating this moment. And, those in higher education, in civic engagement, community outreach, campus programs, whatever it is, those institutions are uniquely positioned in this current ecosystem. You have relationships with K-12 schools, community organizations, and families. You have resources, you have reach, you have credibility, and you have a mandate, I would say, particularly in civic and community engagement work to make that position useful for the communities around you. So, four ways to do that through College Corner. One, share it. Share about College Corner. Tell your K-12 partners it exists, your higher ed partners it exists. Bridge policy to practice. So translate your institutional expertise into guidance that community partners can use. Three, host and co-sponsor with us, right? So embed College Corner into your programming. Continue to tell folks about it, and then connect and refer. So when undocumented students and families reach out to your institution, connect them to our College Corner resources. And again, behind all of this, right, the house for College Corner and all of this is the portal. And, just to give you a little bit of information about that, again, over 1 million people access the portal. It's free and it's built specifically for practitioners. So spend 15 minutes on it this week, and you will be surprised. So I want to leave you with four action items. So before we go to questions, I think there are four things that I think would be really great for everyone on this call to do this week. So the first, again, is to register for the College Corner Session 2 right now before you leave this meeting. It's on June 30th. It's 10 a.m. PST, which is 11:12, 1 p.m. Eastern. So please do that. Two is go to the portal and look up your state's data on the portal, right? So if you're in Illinois, if you're in Pennsylvania, find out what is going on in your state for undocumented students and how you can support them. Three, share the College Corner link and the hub with one of your K-12 or higher ed partners. And then four, try to download one of the tools I shared today. So before the end of the day, either the Mixed Status Family Guide, the Rights and Protection Hub, the Mental Health Guide, try to download one of those guides, put it in front of a student or a colleague within the next 2 weeks and talk about it. And so I just, really believe that if the educators and the practitioners who are working with these students have the tools that they need, whether they're experts or not in the area of immigration, they can really change the trajectory of a student's life. Just like my counselor changed the trajectory of my life. And over time, I learned that other counselors change the trajectory of other students' lives, but in the opposite direction. And so that's what College Corner is for. And it's for you, and it's for you to be able to better support your students. So thank you for joining today, and I look forward to answering any questions that you all have.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Felicia. I'm gonna go ahead. We're a intimate enough group that we can all be on one screen together, or close to it at least. Um, that was so helpful. And I'm gonna go ahead because I'm sure people are hungry for the slides. I was not a great multitasker there, and I don't have the skills to figure out how to share at the same time. I'm trying to help Felicia put the slides up. So I'm going to pull them up real quick and I will put them in a chat because I'm sure that people are hungry for those. So here is the link to the actual slides.
And I
Uh,
also just put the link to the portal in the slides. I mean in the chat. So if you want to be able to access the portal, that's the link. I would say bookmark it. And again, College Corner is on the portal, and I'll share that specific link as well. So bookmark College Corner, that's where you can um and actually, can I share my screen just to do a quick, because can I see like just reactions in the room of folks here that already knows about the Higher Ed Immigration Portal? Just like do a reaction. No, no, I'm seeing no. So I'm seeing some thumbs up, some hearts. No. Okay. So let me just give you a quick uh demonstration of the portal, just so you know that it will be really, really helpful. So This is what the portal looks like if you when you go on the portal.
Hmm.
And it is, again, like I said, it's an initiative of the President's Alliance. The President's Alliance is a nonpartisan organization. We work with college presidents and chancellors, and the portal is an initiative of the Alliance. And it has a lot of data and policies that support all of those student populations that I mentioned. Anything that you want to find out. So if you even go, and can everyone see my mouse moving? Okay. If you go right here and you wanted to learn more about undocumented students, you could, or international students, you could, or immigrant origin, or refugee and displaced students, you could, right? But let's say you wanted to know in Texas, what's going on in Texas. You would just click this map right here, click your state, and already it tells you how many students are in higher education in Texas, how many undocumented students are there, how many international students are there. You can even learn more, and it takes you specifically to a Texas page that tells you everything you need to know about undocumented international refugee students. So right now you'll see the DACA eligible students in Texas, meaning they're eligible for DACA, but they don't have it. The non-DACA eligible students and those who are completely undocumented who are graduating high school. So in Texas right now, about 12,000 undocumented students are graduating high school each year, right? And the list goes on. So you can learn more. And students will come to you and they'll say, okay, so if I'm undocumented and I want to be an accountant or I want to be a nurse or I want to be a lawyer, some counselors, especially in higher ed, right? Academic advising, career counseling, they don't know how to answer those questions. That's on the portal, professional and occupational licensure, right? So if you click professional occupational licensure, you'll be able to answer those questions for your students based on their major, based on what they want to do. You'll be able
Hello.
to help them know if they can access a driver's license in that state or if there's tuition equity in that state, right? And so the portal is just amazing. And again, you can navigate based on the student populations that you want to know more about and find out more about. This map alone tells you, you know, how accessible or inaccessible it is in certain states. And so the green represents comprehensive access. So students typically have a more decent time in those states if they're undocumented. Blue represents no state policy, or yellowish is accessible. Red is very restrictive. And the only three states that are restrictive are South Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama, which means undocumented students cannot access public higher education. Public higher education. They cannot access public higher education in those three states. They can go to private institutions, but not public. And those are the only three, which is unfortunate. And their prohibitive environment as well. And then the purple represents those states where if you have DACA, if students have DACA, they can access certain things. So I'm not going to go through the entire portal, but I just wanted you to know that the portal is so useful. And if you scroll down, you'll go to the College Corner Hub. And again, all of what I was just mentioning is on there. If you wanted to register for the June 30th session, you could click register now and learn more about that. So, but let me stop talking and see if there are any questions. Yeah, I think Molly.
Hi. I have my camera off because I'm kind of in transit, but thank you so much. I'm an EDD student at the University of Pittsburgh, and it's great to see a colleague. I actually work at the University of Pittsburgh as well, but I'm here not in that role. But really nice to see a colleague in the Zoom room. And I guess my question is because for my dissertation and practice for my EDD, I am really looking beyond one institution. But in Pennsylvania, as we saw on the map, there's no state policy. And actually, I'm looking specifically at refugee students. So, but I'm from Virginia. And I thought that Virginia wasn't comprehensive anymore. I thought I saw the other day it was limited. But regardless, there's lots to learn from different states. And my understanding is there's some kind of like community college piece that could be a useful pathway to higher ed in California. So just across different states, providing access, equitable access to these students, whether they're refugee students or undocumented or, different immigration statuses. But my question is really, how would you recommend building this kind of awareness at an institution, but also in partnership with community-based organizations or nonprofits that might be filling gaps between K-12 and higher ed. Because even at an incredibly well-resourced institution, I've found the awareness is just lacking about specific issues like this. And even for people to know, like an advisor that has hundreds of students in their caseload to know about this portal, that's one thing, but like they can't be experts either in education immigration policy. So if you have any tips about building awareness for this kind of issue, I would love to know.
Yeah.
Institution. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I would say the first thing is getting folks on your campus to know a little bit more about College Corner. So I would share College Corner with them because that is a space where practitioners come together to learn more about the issues and how to support those students. The second one is really to also share the higher ed immigration portal with those colleagues as well. And then, if you're at a specific institution, I think the first thing to find out is there a designated person that is assigned to undocumented students or immigrant origin students? And start there, find out what they already know and how they support students on that specific campus. And I would typically start with them. Because a lot of times we think there are no, tools, no services for students, but they actually exist. So one of the issues that I run into a lot is, people tell me undocumented students cannot go to private schools because it's too expensive. When in actuality, actually, private schools are really beneficial for undocumented students because there's less red tape. They don't have to adhere to state policies. And so students can access institutional aid and scholarships and just less red tape on those college campuses. And so we even have a private institution tool on the portal that helps practitioners who are working with these students identify which states are these schools in. What colleges are undocu friendly or are refugee friendly, right? And so that's where I would start the portal and finding out what already exists on the campus.
I had a question, Felicia, that I know has come up from other colleagues. So I had someone recently was just talking about, so much of the college access work, particularly over the past, really since this year, but even obviously before that, with everything that was coming around enforcement, they're just seeing like, the families just aren't showing up. They're not participating and they're trying to think about how they need to, and they are actively adjusting their programs. But have you seen any strategies where campuses in these spaces have try different things in this moment where it's a lot of it is just, they're just not seeing the families because of fear and obviously security concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, so it starts with, the administration on the college campus. So, an example of this, and I'm sure a lot of you already know about this, but there was, what's called the surge in Minnesota, and specifically Augsburg College was impacted, where there was like three students who were detained, right? But that president Paul Perbenow went into action of like, what can we do to support our students on this campus? So the first thing that happened was students were able to take a leave of absence, and that was okay. That wasn't going to affect their scholarships or anything else, right? So they were able to put in a request for a leave of absence until they felt mentally ready to be able to come back to campus. The second piece was implementing online learning for those students who were afraid to come to campus. And so they implemented that policy and they saw a surge in online learning for students who are impacted. So not just all students, right? But students who are impacted. And they put in a protocol in place for students to be able to request that. The other piece was it was a smaller institution, so they were able to get fobs for Yeah, Paul is great. And he actually was featured on this PBS special that I think was out last night talking about this issue. But they got, fobs for some of the buildings and the dorms so that students felt safe, right? Because there's a difference between private and public spaces on campus and where can enforcement enter. And so just putting all of that in place. And then the other piece was creating a group of allies and people on campus who knew exactly what to do if something were to happen on campus, right? So I would say giving students access to online learning, giving students access to a leave of absence, making sure students felt safe in the dorm on campus, making sure faculty and staff understood the difference between private and public spaces on campus, and making sure there was a group and a list of people and numbers that students knew they could call if something were to go wrong. And Augsburg obviously is not the only university that's implemented some of these policies. But again, it starts with the administration. But those are some of the even like, thinking small scale, action steps that institutions have put in place to make sure students can continue their education.
I promise I was not teeing you up to just feature Augsburg, but I didn't know that was the example you were going to draw on. But always thrilled to hear a highlight of Paul and Augsburg.
Mhm.
Anybody else have questions or just clarification? Or I also want to invite if you have a resource that you'd like to share or something that you think is working for you in your work.
Hi, I have a question. My name's Leela. I'm at the University of Washington School of Computer Science and Engineering, and I'm actually a part of our outreach team. So we have a recruitment team as well that helps students, actually fill out applications and make sure they can access all of those resources. This is fantastic work that you all are doing. It's so great to hear about it. But my team is focused on just getting young people excited about the field and thinking about college. And I noticed that you said you are directly working in schools. We work with schools and organizations, and I'm just wondering if you have any ideas on how we can be reaching out to these populations. So rather than, providing all of the resources before we even get to that place, how can we do a better job of making sure that we are reaching these young people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And glad to see University of Washington. I was just there in April on campus actually, working with the folks who support undocumented students there. So we were on campus working with them. And yes, so I worked in college access for 6 years, college counseling for 6 years in Philadelphia at Cristo Rey High School, and then served in undergraduate admission as the director at a private liberal arts school in California. And yeah, a big piece of it is outreach. How do you get to those students? And I think it's through partnership with the different departments that are trying to get to students, right? So one example I like to give, when I was in admission, we went to the different departments. So whichever department on campus that had an intentional effort where they wanted to reach undocumented students, more lower income students, and we partnered with them to include that in our admissions information, our recruitment presentation, right? So we worked with those departments to say, what do we want to say to these audiences? What would you want the admission counselors to say to these audiences when they're out on the road, right? Because that's who they're going to hear from. That's the people who are out on the road saying, hey, come to this school and we have these programs. And so we worked with those different departments to adjust our outreach presentations and what they looked like so that when we talked about those different areas and if there's a student in the audience at the high school that's like it piqued their interest, oh, and they accept undocumented students and they want us to be thinking about these areas, they would come up to those admission counselors after the presentation and talk to them. And so you have to kind of build those outreach opportunities in that way. But I think the biggest way, especially if you're already in higher ed, is to partner with the admissions office. And then also think about the high schools or the middle schools in your area or the surrounding areas where there might be a large population of the students you're trying to attract, and asked to like go to those schools and talk to the college counseling teams or the 12th graders or the 11th graders. And so that's some of the strategies I would put in place to try to get some of those students to learn more about specific programs. Yeah.
Great. Any other questions or comments before we wrap today? Got like 4 more minutes to fill if we need. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, Felicia. I have captured all the slides and the resources, and I love that you left people with 4 action steps to take. So we will be pushing that out. Feel free to access those slides and get started right away, but you'll get an email coming from our team in the next couple of days with the recording that you can also share with colleagues. And we'll get this up on our website. So thank you so much. And yeah, I
Thank
love it.
you.
People are going to be there on June 30th. So awesome.
Okay,
Thank you so
great.
much, Felicia. Thank you so much for the President's Alliance for the great work. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Bye.